Hello again, and welcome back to Lost in Translation. My name is Nico, and we are going to take a look at this week's Torah portion, Bo, and the 10 things you will miss if you're only reading the Torah portion in English. Bo, come unto Pharaoh. In fact, we see this a lot in this discussion with Pharaoh, this progression of the plagues. Hashem is constantly telling Hashem el Moshe, Bo el Paro, come unto Pharaoh. And this is a bit strange. You know, eh, come unto Pharaoh suggests that Pharaoh is in the same location as Hashem. And what we learn is that Pharaoh is actually the backside of Hashem, and that all the names in the Torah are names of the Creator. So, in effect, uh, yes, this quality of Moshe, this is something else. This quality of Moshe, which is connected to Hashem, has to come close enough to the quality of Pharaoh to communicate the uh, the demand to allow Israel to leave. Number two, in a lot of translations, there's still trouble with land and earth. Okay, so this time around, this is a chronic confusion in the translations, right? The interposition of land and earth with these words of eretz or aretz and adama. It's confusing for us as English readers because it separates us from the implications that are in the Hebrew roots, right? So here we have the locusts, they ascend over the entire land of Eretz. That's straightforward enough. Land of Eretz, land of Egypt, Eretz Mitzrayim. That's not a problem. But we get down here into this earth stuff. Why do we do this? I'm not sure, right? They obscured the view of all the earth. But again, it's edits, right? So why are they doing this? Again, it's probably something where we have this connection back to the creation story, and we're trying to, talk about a planet, or I don't know. Who knows exactly why? I mean, it's not capitalized, it's not the planet Earth, it's soil, right? But soil is Adama, not audits or edits. So, there is a profound disconnect in this translation. Again, remember that eretz is connected back to ratzon, which you lose in translation as well. But if we are inconsistent with the translation of this word aretz or eretz, we lose even the capacity to track that connection in English if we become aware of it, right? So here's another example of this problem. Okay, number three. With our youngsters and with our elders. Okay, so Pharaoh is finally coming around and maybe being willing to allow this 3-day journey into the wilderness. And he starts asking some questions, right? So, okay, you're free to go. Please go out and make your sacrifices. These plagues are starting to hurt. But wait a second, who is going, right? And and here's when things get interesting. That Moshe Rabbeinu, he says that we're going with our youth and with our elders. With our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our cattle, we will go. Now remember when the sons of Yaakov went up to bury him, it specifically says that they left their elders and they left their children behind, and that they left their flocks behind. And so now Moshe Rabbeinu is being very clear that no, we're all going. And of course, Pharaoh rejects this, and this is when he gets hit by the plague of the of the uh, of the locusts. Okay, number 4. Not a single locust remained. Right, and here they give us the translation: not one locust remained. Right, uh, lo nish'el arbe achad b'kol gavul Mitzrayim. Right, so after there was relief from this plague, the west wind blew all of the locusts back to the Red Sea. And so what's happening here? Why? I mean, the frogs were left in heaps, right? There were the whole land stank from the frogs dying. But here we have the locusts all being blown away. And here, you know, frogs, dead frogs, there's not much you can do with those. They're going to rot pretty quick. That's why the whole land was stinking with them. But locusts came specifically to hit the food supply of Egypt. And locusts can be food too. In fact, there is in the Torah mention of a species or a type of locust that's even kosher. We don't know what that is anymore, and so we don't eat locusts. But there is something in the Torah that teaches this. Um, and here we have this plague that's happened, and all the locusts are blown away so that Egypt doesn't have the opportunity to benefit from this plague. 5, darkness and light. Okay, the ninth plague is the plague of darkness, a tangible darkness, a heavy darkness, a darkness so profound that people were stuck in the positions that they were in when the darkness fell. They couldn't see anything. They couldn't. If you were sitting, they couldn't move. They couldn't get up. If they were standing, they couldn't lie down. It was if they were laying down, they couldn't get up. So this was true for all of Egypt, and again, like the locusts, like the plague, the epidemic that broke out amongst the livestock, the children of Israel set apart right here that there was light, right? ובכל בני ישראל היה אור במושבותם, right? There was light in their dwellings, wherever they were, there was light. And so we have this, again, this separation, in all of this, as the reality is sitting in on Mitzrayim, on Pharaoh, that all of this reality of Hashem is a darkness for them. It is death. In fact, at the with the locusts, Pharaoh is pleading with Moshe to please remove this death from us, right? So that step by step, this purification process the of the will to receive is happening through these plagues. So now that we're getting towards the very end, it is darkness for Mitzrayim, and it is light for Israel. It is light for Yashar Kel. So now, at the beginning, when Israel was content to be slaves, now there's this light in the work. There's this light in the desire to leave, and that's what we see happening here. Number 6. Pharaoh starts negotiating. Okay, so now at this point, before the locusts, Pharaoh was kind of open to allowing them to go, allowing Israel to go for this 3-day journey into the wilderness, and then he refuses to let everyone go. And now he's trying to negotiate. He's like, okay, go, right? Go worship the Lord, but your flocks and your cattle shall be left. It's like, let's make a deal, right? Leave all your wealth, leave all your possessions here, and go have your 3-day journey and your festival, right? But he wants some sort of guarantee that they're coming back, when really we know that that's not what's happening. And that's when then Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, no, you're going to give us stuff too. You're going to give us sacrifices and burnt offerings that we're going to take and offer on your behalf as well. That, cattle will go with us. Not a single hoof will remain behind. Like, okay, so this again calls back to that situation, the burial of Jacob in the story of Joseph, when cattle was left behind. Well, here, no, it's being made very clear: we're leaving everything of ours, and you're gonna give us stuff too. In fact, what we find is that as Hashem had promised, the children of Israel empty Egypt. They take all the wealth of Egypt with them. And we'll see how that turns out as we go ahead. Okay, number 7. You shall never see my face again. Okay, right here. Vayomer lo Pharaoh lech me'alai ki shomer lecha al tosef ot pnai ki biyom rotcha pnai damot. Right? So this is the final separation. Pharaoh and Moshe, they're they're no longer in proximity to each other. They cannot be in proximity to each other. And if we remember, we've spoken about spirituality, how there is no distance. Proximity and its opposite have to do with quality. And so now it's obvious that the quality of Moshe and the quality of Pharaoh are completely opposite. And for them to be in proximity means that one must die. Opposites can't exist together at the same time, like this darkness and this light, right? For the darkness and the light can exist together at the same time. Well, there's teaching that they do exist at the same time in the end of days and the final correction. But for us in this existence, the lights are on or they're off. It's dark or it's light. Here we have the same thing. Pharaoh is making the final proclamation. We are through. There's no connection between us, and there can't possibly be. Okay, number 8. Roasted over fire. Okay, here Moshe Rabbeinu has just been told about the final plague, the death of the firstborn, and so now the nation of Israel has preparations to do. Um, the sacrifice of a kid or a lamb, um, an unblemished animal, an unblemished sacrifice, and the painting of the blood on the doorposts and the lintel so the destroyer knows not to enter into the Hebrew homes and not to kill the firstborns there, right? Um, which in this is the foundation, this is the beginning of the Passover or the Pesach holiday. Um, and we follow many traditions during Passover from the Torah here. And in particular, this is interesting here that the flesh of the sacrifice should be roasted over fire, right? We don't boil it. We don't partially roast it, right? Um, it's very important that it's shrunk in size. That when you roast meat, it diminishes in its size because all the moisture comes out of it. It can be tough to eat. It can be, and this diminution of the size of the meal also, it demonstrates what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to become smaller. We're supposed to get rid of the excess. We're supposed to pass through the flame and only be left with the essential. And it teaches us about the reduction of our egoism and our own desires in order to connect with this quality of Moshe and the desire to leave Egypt. Number 9, matzot. Okay, very similar to this roasted meat, we have unleavened cakes, right? That's the matzot, right? Leavening, the expansion. Well, unleavened, that we don't let it expand. We keep it in its essential form. It doesn't get to inflate, it doesn't get to be big like our egos. I think I'm important enough to tell you all these things. I mean, how big is my ego, right? Our egos are a constant problem, and Passover is, and the festival of Matzot, the 7-day period. This is specifically a time to work on this, to make our egos small. This is the bread of affliction, the bread of the impoverished, right? That that otherwise um, we can't carry our exaggerated egoism into spirituality. We can't carry it out of Mitzrayim. In fact, our egoism is the very nature of Mitzrayim. It is what limits us in our capacity for spiritual growth. And the Matzot, uh, they come to teach us how to try to reduce that in order to rise up out of Egypt and enter the land. Okay, number 10, the commandments for Tefilen or phylacteries. Okay, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, then we have these. These are Tefilen. This is the Tefilen that's worn on the arm, right? And we have these two boxes with pieces of animal skin that have been written on. This is all holy scripts are written on this material, um, and the Torah is the same way. The Sefer Torah that we read off of in the synagogue, it's written on animal skin, and so we have one on our arm and one on our head, and this is the first time here in the portion of Bo uh, that we see this commandment in the Torah. Okay, and so this very last part, this beginning of chapter 12, this is something that we read almost every day, very early on in the prayers, just after we put on the tefillin, uh, first the arm and then the head. We read this part of this portion of the Torah, um, and down here in 9, right here, we see that this is it, and it shall be as a sign upon your hand and a remembrance between your eyes, in order that the law of the Lord shall be in your mouth. For with a mighty hand the Lord took you out of Egypt, right? וזכרון בעין עיניך, למען תחיה תורת השם בפיך, כי ביד חזקה הוציאך השם ממצרים. Okay, so the tefillin are this is the sign between the eyes. It is the remembrance, the sign upon your hand, and the remembrance between our eyes. And we learn through the Mishnah, through the Talmud, that this particular practice is part of the oral tradition that's supposed to that was taught at Sinai by Moshe. And it's just it's interesting that right here, this is the first place in the Torah that we see this commandment. Okay, well, thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. Like always, please share with me your ideas if you found something else interesting about this particular portion. Share with me. Like, subscribe, comment, and until next time, be well.